How can you use the phrase, "that's outrageous"? Today, I'm not only going to tell you how you can use it, but I'm going to tell you a story so you can remember it. Welcome to English Coach 3Ts. I'm Tanya, and as usual, I have created a practice sheet so you can learn even more with this video. And the best part is it's free. To sign up for my More English Club, all you have to do is click on the link below and I will send you a practice sheet whenever I come out with a new English story for you to learn with. Once you are a member, be sure to check your email on the day the video comes out, and you can also get the practice sheets for videos in the past simply by scrolling down on the document where you got the practice sheet. So let's talk about this phrase, "that's outrageous." First, what does the word outrageous mean? Interestingly, it's one of those words that can either mean something negative or positive. But when we use it in this phrase with the tone I've been using here, it is a negative meaning. We mean that something is way beyond the usual limits. Almost like saying, "that's totally crazy," or "that is ridiculous." "That's outrageous" is pretty much the same thing. But there are times when we use this word outrageous to mean that something is really, really good. And you will see this in the names of businesses and other things, wanting to say that their product, their service, their experience that they're selling is way above and beyond better than the others. Today, I want to tell you a story so that you can remember this phrase, "that's outrageous," and start using it in your English conversations. So the story of this video has to do with asparagus. Yes, the vegetable asparagus. And asparagus is one of the reasons I became a nomad. Yes, it is true. So to really understand the story, you have to go back just a little ways to understand my relationship with asparagus. When I was a child growing up in the Midwest, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, that part of the United States, we never ate asparagus. I didn't even know there was such a thing as asparagus. It just wasn't common. It wasn't something you saw regularly in the grocery stores, and you for sure did not see it on our dinner table. So why is that? I have a couple of thoughts of why that is, but I think one of the reasons is that asparagus has always been a little more expensive than some other vegetables. And I think that's because it's a little more difficult to grow. Now, fast forward in my life a little bit until I become a young adult and I move out to the Southwest where I'm living today. And suddenly I know lots of people that eat asparagus, and they are kind of surprised why I have never tried it. Similarly to shrimp. Shrimp wasn't something I ate as a child either, for similar reasons. It was expensive, but also it's hard to get fresh shrimp in the middle of the United States. And so these were the kinds of things I was learning to enjoy and like in my regular diet. Now, as I said, asparagus was a little more expensive than some of the other vegetables, but not outrageously more expensive. So whenever we would have a special occasion and we wanted to fix a special meal, asparagus is a vegetable that we would often pick as something a little bit special. Then, when my children were born and I was now in my late 30s by the time that they were young children and early 40s, asparagus became something we ate more regularly. Not all the time, but we did have it often, a lot more often than I had in my childhood or young adult life. And this is partly because as I got to be an older adult, my career and my work was a little more stable. And also, like I said, even though asparagus was a little more expensive, it wasn't too bad. And I thought of it as, hey, it's a vegetable. It's good for you. It's okay to pay a little bit more for something that is healthy. At the end of 2019, when we sold our family home and I moved out to California to the little village that I love, I noticed that the price of asparagus in California was quite a bit higher than it was in Arizona, but still not outrageous. So what prices are we looking at? When I left Arizona in 2019, you would pay somewhere between $4 and maybe up to $7 or $8 for asparagus, depending on the season, depending on the store, that kind of thing. And I'm talking about price per pound, which is typically a nice bunch of asparagus. A bunch of something is when you have several that you put together, like a bunch of asparagus or a bunch of spinach. And like I said, it was something I ate regularly. But the little market in my tiny little town in the mountains in Southern California charged more than what I was used to paying. Now, part of that was the difference in the economy between Arizona and California, and part of that was the difference in the economy between living in a city and living in the mountains. So there were a couple of different factors or reasons that went into the difference in this price. And I started eating asparagus a little less than I used to because instead of being like $4 to $7 or $8, it was more like $6 to $9 or $10. And I wasn't going to pay $9 or $10 for a vegetable. If it were 6 and it was a really special occasion, or I was really craving asparagus, meaning I really felt like I wanted some asparagus, then I would pay the extra price and be happy to have it because I wasn't paying this price all the time and it felt like something special. Then after COVID, when prices just started going up and going up and going up, for a while I was still buying it occasionally until finally the price of asparagus was outrageous. But there's more. So for a long time, I almost never ate asparagus because every time I went to the store, it was like $10, sometimes even $11 for a pound of asparagus. And I just thought, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay that much for asparagus when I can eat broccoli, which is still very expensive, or some other vegetable like spinach, which also was very expensive, but not as expensive as asparagus. Then recently, a couple of months ago, this is April of 2025, so probably February, I was in the grocery store and I decided I don't care what the asparagus costs. I'm craving it so badly, I'm going to pay whatever it costs. And I went over to the produce section. The produce section is where you'll find all the fruits and vegetables. And I looked and saw that there were just a couple of bunches of asparagus, and the price was $12 a pound. And the idea of I don't care what it cost went out the window. This is a phrase we use when we are like, we don't have that idea anymore. That is gone. I don't think that anymore. It's over. Needless to say, I was looking at the asparagus and I was like, that's outrageous. It is totally out of control, ridiculous, meaning the economy. So how did this contribute to me becoming a nomad? If you saw my last video, you know that the economy played a big part in my decision to become a nomad. I'm not saying that there were no vegetables that I could afford in the store, but more and more I couldn't afford the asparagus, the spinach, the broccoli, all the things that are a regular part of my diet. Quickly, almost everything in the store was so expensive, I literally could not afford to buy it. And this is one of the reasons I decided to go out and search for a better life where I could actually eat healthy food without paying an arm and a leg. When we say you're paying an arm and a leg, we mean an outrageous price, a huge amount of money. I am super grateful to share with you that I had asparagus for lunch today here where I'm staying in the desert. And yes, I did pay $4 a pound for it, which at one time in my life would have felt like a lot of money. But I have not had asparagus in so long, it was worth paying a little more than I might usually pay for a vegetable to have something that is a little special and a lot less expensive than I would have paid just a few weeks ago. As I said before, I know there are a lot of things that go into determining the price of anything from asparagus to a car to a home to a chair, whatever it is. And the topic of conversation around the United States has really been focused on these things for the last few months as the economy has gotten completely out of hand, meaning completely outrageous. That being said, if you want to continue learning English with me, I did another video about prices when the economy was not good back in 21, 22. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I'll put that video here when I went to a food share to save money. See you there. Pippa wants back in the car. Right now, right this very second? You can't wait. Okay, she can't wait. I really felt like I wanted some really felt like I wanted some really